Eligibility.
Oh, Pete Thamel. Gonzaga is set to join the Pac-12 today.
There you go.
So there's your answer. There's the answer to the question we've been waiting for.
It's a huge announcement.
So
That's a big deal.
This is the contingency plan. Hey, we're going to add Gonzaga, but what is Gonzaga, obviously?
Well,
Gonzaga is a non-football member, right? And that's a difference. Non-football
that's a
versus
huge difference.
Football only is two different things, right? Gonzaga, everyone knows them for basketball, but what do they have? They've got all kinds of other sports in their athletic department. So the thing with Gonzaga is this is a play to solidify a TV deal. This is the Pac-12 saying, hey, we need another brand, another nameplate that allows us to legitimize ourselves. And I think this Big 12 versus Pac-12 dynamic is really fascinating because what have we talked about with Gonzaga? And this is what I think we got to get into here. They've had an open invite to the Big 12 for some time now. We reported that last year. It's been confirmed repeatedly by national pundits. They've had that open invite to the Big 12, but why did they not take it? It wasn't because they didn't like the Big 12, right? They didn't take that because of how good they had it in their current situation, right? Meaning, hey, you're in the tournament, you're winning that conference every year, you're taking the shares, everything's good there. So what I'm really curious about for Gonzaga and for the Pac-12 is how much more money in the Pac-12 is Gonzaga going to make than they are now? Because if you're Gonzaga, just the same way you didn't want to go to the Big 12 because you didn't have a guaranteed tournament bid every year out of that conference, is the same way going to the Pac-12 you do. So the only reason Gonzaga would do this is because they're looking at making more money and getting more opportunity than they have now. So now we're talking about, in my opinion, unequal revenue distribution in the Pac-12, and Gonzaga is going to be at the top of that list.
Well, and what we had talked about earlier, about 2 weeks ago when this first came up, Gonzaga is expected to take a full share of whatever the payout is. Because when you don't play football, that's a significant stream of revenue that you are losing. That's a huge value proposition. And the reason that it makes sense, and a lot of people reported this after we talked about it. I was told directly that Gonzaga didn't join the Big 12 because they don't want to lose their position as an automatic qualifier for the NCAA tournament. And this speaks volumes about what the new Pac-12 is. It's not a basketball conference. It's a football conference. So adding Gonzaga, and this makes you wonder, who else are you going to tag team with Gonzaga? Because you can't have just one basketball member only.
Is this the GCU angle?
I think it is the GCU angle, because I think if you are Gonzaga, you're the best basketball program in that conference, save no one. Not even, I think you're a better basketball program than San Diego State is, right? So I think you're there. You are going to compete for a conference championship every year. And if you are Grand Canyon, this makes a lot of sense. And as we reported on the show, GCU and the Pac-12 have had extensive conversations.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see if GCU comes along on this line. This is a very fluid situation, obviously. I think this is going to be really interesting. I think there's no doubt from a basketball perspective, this is a good move for the Pac-12.
Yes.
But if you're going to the CW and you are going to, we're told Amazon Prime Video, does Gonzaga bring you significantly more TV revenue than not? I think they add value in basketball. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they do to a TV deal. I'm going to have to ask some questions about that, because it's going to be very interesting to see how all this plays out. But if you're just tuning in,
Ross just tweeted, to your point about, hey, who would they pair with Gonzaga? Ross Dellinger tweeted a minute ago that the Pac-12 is planning to announce Gonzaga as its 8th member this morning, which would suggest that maybe there isn't a 9th member to pair with Gonzaga at this time.
I don't know how you schedule football around that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the biggest issue. Now, the obviously why this is significant is, well, because you need to have 8 full share members. to be an FBS conference. So I'm curious, though. This cannot be the last edition.
No.
This can't be the end for the Pac-12. It simply cannot. I mean, I look at Gloria Navarez. Is UTEP a move to create? Because we had heard that Conference USA and the Mountain West had conversations about a merger. And I'm very curious, is that where we're going with the Mountain West as well? Because I think that is going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Because I also think adding Gonzaga probably eliminates Texas State. I think that's probably the likelihood based on scope and size and revenue generation.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be interesting because now if you look at Conference USA, I mean, you have some very interesting members there. If you look at Liberty, I think Florida International is very interesting. Obviously, New Mexico State is very interesting.
Where's Florida Atlantic at? Where are they at?
Florida Atlantic is in. Are they in the AAC? I could be wrong.
Can't remember off the top of my head. I only asked that because I'm sitting here thinking about like, okay, you got Gonzaga by all accounts. Not
Florida
officially.
Atlantic is in the AAC.
So if you're trying to pump value through basketball per se, and you're looking around, the G5, to me, if you're trying to go that far east, FAU would be an interesting conversation. But I think the problem here, see, this is what I don't understand. So the Pac-12 is, like you said, a football conference, right?
Yes.
You're trying to build back as a football conference. But now you've kind of thrown this sort of wrench in it with Gonzaga where they don't play football. So if you're trying to get to 8 full share members, then at that point, is simply paying Gonzaga a full share your angle? Is that what you're trying to do to get back to that designation as a conference?
Well, no. I mean, you have to have, just because you don't play football, it doesn't eliminate you from being a full share member. You have to have all of the athletics in that particular athletic department to be considered a full member. So Gonzaga does that. The problem with FAU is, and that's a haul, dude. That's Boca. That's Boca. And that is the Atlantic coast of Florida. That is a haul, dude. That is a long way to go. Which is why I think you're not going to hear about them. I think you are far more likely, in my opinion. It's what made UConn very difficult.
Yes.
It's why everybody talks about universities like Creighton. It's why Butler's, the Indiana's, the Indiana is not that far. It's certainly not Boca. It's certainly not Florida. It's certainly not Nebraska with Creighton. It's certainly it's more in play there. But you look at the football part of this has to matter, you guys.
Yeah, this is why the UNLV situation is such a problem for the Pac-12. Not getting UNLV, you'd be having a different conversation right now if you'd have gotten UNLV right out the gate. And I'm sitting here wondering, okay, well, because you're going to have to add another team that plays football. Like you need another member institution that plays football to make this work.
If you look at, this is so interesting because they're exactly opposite. The Pac-12 now has 8 full members. The Mountain West has 8 football teams and 7 full members.
Yeah.
So you've still got to find another full member. And I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I mean, you look at what is in the Mountain West currently. I mean, UNLV, San Jose State, Wyoming. Obviously you have Hawaii as the football only, which is interesting. But you have Nevada, you have New Mexico, Air Force, and now UTEP are full members. And you've got to find a way. I don't think you can add Hawaii as a full share member. The travel is just ball breaking.
Yeah.
It is far. I mean, that's That's a 6-hour flight, depending on where you are in this conference. For UTEP, that's a 7.5-hour flight. I
Yeah.
just don't think you can do that.
Yep.
That just does not make sense. And I go back to Conference USA, and I say you've got to find a way to merge with them. It is really very difficult.
And maybe the play is you wait now. I mean, maybe the play is now you're going to wait and hope for some opportunities to open up over the next year or two. I mean,
Kirk Mason, I don't think you can do this though. Adding AAC members, they just signed a letter of intent on a new grant of rights, as did all the members of the Mountain West. And I see everybody talking about ACC. Like, do you understand that you're not getting out of the ACC grant of rights?
Yeah, I think that's been pretty well proven.
Stanford and Cal are not leaving that conference. But Rowdy,
strategically though, this is what I mean. Like, Calford's a good example. Hey, so now that we're at 8, if we wait, 2 years now and just wait for an opportunity, wait for something to happen in college football and in realignment, maybe that's how we get to 10.
What does this do to the WCC? Because I think this is a really interesting conversation. The West Coast Conference, if you look at what's there, obviously I'm going to say St. Mary's, but if you look at the WCC, that's not a terrible league. Losing Gonzaga, you lose your flagship program. And I think that is going to be very difficult. Your St. Mary's, Gonzaga, San Francisco, the Dons, Santa Clara, San Diego, Pepperdine, Loyola Marymount, Portland, and Pacific, who went 0-16 in conference last year. I mean, obviously the gems of that league are St. Mary's and Santa Clara. And I mean, the Dons aren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco's not bad. But you look at the WAC, I think Grand Canyon won 30 games last year.
Yeah. It's a lot of games, dude.
I mean, that league is a great basketball league. I mean, obviously Mark Madsen leaving Utah Valley doesn't help, but I think you look at the basketball in that league. I'd be looking at the WAC. I'd be looking at GCU. If I'm Gloria, are you not calling GCU and St. Mary's today? I would be. I'd absolutely be, and I'm certain she's had that conversation. This is going to be a very fluid situation.
Yeah,
it is going to be. And my question is, what does the WCC do? Because can you exist without Gonzaga? You can, but on what level? I don't know. They don't play football in that league.
I feel like we're getting negative reaction to Gonzaga joining the Pac-12. Why do you guys not like this ad?
I'm
not sure what other choice they had. I mean, you needed to do something. You clearly lost the UTEP race, and it's been obvious. And this goes back to the old world Pac-12 that we used to have. Gonzaga was talking to them and the Big 12. So it's not like this relationship is new, and this is the Teresa Gould angle, right? Hey, this is someone who's old guard in the Pac-12, who's been a part of these conversations. So, I'm not really surprised to see Gonzaga going to the Pac-12. I just think the problem it presents is that Gonzaga is clearly your best basketball brand now, and they don't play football. So,
and Sacramento State's terrible in basketball.
So now you're kind of having to. And again, this is part of the process, right? It's not lost to me that, hey, you're going to have to patchwork this conference back together and deal with some of these oddities. But I'm just telling you, you got to find another football
This is
member.
a win for the Pac-12.
Yeah,
unequivocally.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. You're not done. This feels like one of those things where you're just stemming the tide a little bit. And I think that speaks volumes about where this competition between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West is, because they are quite literally fighting for survival.
Yeah, and right now, let's be really clear. The Pac-12 is across the line. They're at 8. And the Mountain West unofficially is not there yet. You're not. You still have to add UTEP officially. That's got to get done. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We shall see. Harry Austin, the disappointment is that the Zags could have been in the Big 12, and it feels like they settled for the P2 with a lot of unknown. Well, but I agree with it.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving the WCC. If I'm Gonzaga, I'm not leaving the WCC for uncertainty in basketball. If basketball is the meal ticket at Gonzaga. And I think you turn down now, and it has to be said, they've turned down the Big 12 again. They've made that clear because you don't want to jeopardize your auto bid into the NCAA tournament. It makes perfect sense for Gonzaga.
Well, and I also think, again, this is just my opinion, conjecture on this, but if I'm Gonzaga, I would think that you would kind of value the leverage you would have with the leadership of the Pac-12, being that, hey, we're going to join your conference, and us joining brings you credibility and helps you add other members.
Yeah.
And that's leverage that there's no valuation on that type of leverage. That's leverage that you can use in a variety of different ways.
Yep.
So I also think that's part of the piece of the story here.
Yep. Kirk Mason, I'll just continue to say, you're not getting anybody in the AAC.
Yeah.
They've signed a new grant of rights. It's over. That ship has sailed. They have all committed to that conference. There's just no way to do that. I think this is, listen, I just again will say this is a big deal for the Pac-12. There is no question that you look at this Pete Thamel story. Gonzaga expected to join the Pac-12 today. They're going to follow the Big 12 market. They're going to follow the Big 12 business model. We're going to have a basketball division and we're going to have a football division. This is a win for Pac-12 basketball.
Yeah.
There's no way to spin it. And I think if you are Gloria Nevarez, this is absolutely unequivocally, without question, a win for the Mountain West. The Mountain West now has a firm foothold in the state of Texas. This is a win. This is a win for everybody but football fans. Because I continue to tell you, realignment and expansion continues to be problematic for fans. You are joining two conferences, more the Pac-12, but you are joining two conferences that have zero stability right now.
Yeah.
I have told you from the jump on this, 10 teams. They're trying to get to 10 teams. Eight is the minimum. You need to be at 10 teams, 10 schools in your conference. It's got to happen, and it will happen. But it's a matter of destroying a great basketball league like the WCC now.
Yep. It's consolidation in college athletics.
And I agree with the commenter who said, if I'm the WCC, I am calling the folks at Grand Canyon University. Hey, come take that spot that Gonzaga left. Because remember what the WCC has dealt with recently. Yet they also lost BYU. When BYU went to the Big 12, well, where was BYU basketball? The WCC.
Yeah.
So as an independent, BYU basketball was in the WCC. That's a big loss when you lose a brand like BYU. It's a big loss when you lose a brand like Gonzaga. How many big losses can they absorb? So I think if I'm the Pac-12, I am trying to get Grand Canyon, and I am trying to get St. Mary's, and I am trying to build basketball and football. It's why you're willing. I go back to Toledo in Northern Illinois. Toledo and Northern Illinois don't want all of their sports in the Mountain West. But would you love to raise your football, exposure? You would. And playing football in the Mountain West, that's raising it, especially now that it helps you recruit in different places football-wise, and you're going to get a better TV deal in the Mountain West. It makes sense. It does not make sense to travel your stick and ball in your secondary sports and your women's sports, your women's college basketball. Do you want to have your women's college basketball on the road for 10 days like we see in softball and soccer? I don't. And I don't think that makes sense. I think that's why you're seeing all of this craziness.
Yeah.
And it is craziness right now. Delaric, if the Pac offered Hawaii full membership, would they take it?
I don't know, man.
Hawaii, I think, would take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would, but I still think it's a conversation just from a geographic standpoint. Like, that's still a long flight.
I think it is a long flight.
I mean, you're still talking, you're still talking, what, 7 hours to Colorado Springs. Like, I mean, that's still, it's a lot of money, man. But yeah, I mean, I think they would probably take that. Yeah.
I mean, I would think so. I would think so. It's just going to be a matter of how do you.
Yeah.
But again, Hawaii as a football member has committed to the Mountain West. So it's not.
So I'm saying there's a lot of unknown here. There's a lot of question marks. Like, I agree. Win adding Gonzaga. Absolute win. Great move. Like totally agree. Win to add UTEP for the Mountain West for sure. And now I think we're in a place in the conversation where you're getting across the line at 8. And now we're going to pause and we're going to say, okay, this is our conference for both sides here, not just the Pac-12, but this is the makeup of our conference. Where does this leave us? What can we do to push forward?
Do you guys believe on any level that I don't necessarily believe that we ever see these teams play under these conferences. I think the Super League happens in 2 years. And I think some of these universities will wind up in the Super League. And I think the AAC, the Memphis, Tulane, South Florida is going to be in it. If there's a Super League, South Florida will be in it.
Yeah.
I don't
waiting for an opportunity to jump up.
I think there's so much change that we don't even know is happening behind the scenes, that a lot of this just feels like we're doing this now because we don't. At the G5 level, I think there is going to be significant change, shockwave type of changes that will happen when the Super League is formed.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, and that's what you're trying to position yourself to be best prepared for. I mean, at the G5 level, which is where the Pac-12 is going to be, you can't afford to have you can't afford to be vulnerable. You can't afford to be in a place where you're, going to suffer major losses or whatever. Because
I also don't think you can at the G5 level have an ACC type grant of rights where it's arduous to get out and it's 10 years. And
no, because you don't have the value of getting into the college football playoff with regularity. So,
woo, yeah, I think it is. This is amazing. This is amazing. Rowdy Runner, GCU already going to the WCC. I don't know that that's the case.
Yeah, I think GCU, my opinion is GCU is probably talking to a bunch of different people this morning.
I would agree with that. Fat Old Mormon and Dying says Hawaii would 100% take it. Mike Smith, Gonzaga to the Pac and UTEP to the Mountain West only makes the ACC stronger. Okay. Wow. Ross Dellinger with more tweeting. The Mountain West has held deep, serious discussions with Tarleton State. The Mountain West needs one more full member to qualify as a conference. Negotiations between the Texas-based FCS school and the conference have progressed. According to, are you taking Tarleton over Texas State?
Apparently.
Are you doing that?
I mean, I don't know. There's a reason. I can tell you that. There's a reason that they're prioritizing Tarleton over Texas State. That much is very.
That's got to be money, right?
Yeah, something money related, or yeah. But this is what I mean. Like when I say this pretty regularly on the show, like the people like Gloria Nevarez and presidents at schools and things like that, they have intimate details of the financial picture that media members, and I don't care, us, Ross Dellinger, Pete Thamel, they have knowledge that even those guys or us don't have. And they're making decisions based on that information, and we just have to react to that. I mean, I would agree that Tarleton State over, Texas State is an interesting conversation, but I think that, again, just like we just said 2 minutes ago, at the G5 level, you do not want to be in a position where you're exposed for any longer than you need to be. And, the story that will be written about the Mountain West, if they can get back to 8 today, let's say, or this week, will be, hey, the Pac-12 tried to rebuild itself and poached your conference and tried to tear you down. You bounce back quickly and swiftly, and Gloria Nevarez is a phenomenal commissioner. And if that is the story that's written, that will pay dividends down the line, which is why I think you're seeing Gloria in part be so aggressive to get back, because your reputation in these conversations matters. And
it does matter.
And her reputation right now is A1. It's perfect.
Well, and I'm just trying to figure out, why Tarleton State? Like it's very interesting. I mean, this is they're in the Texas A&M system. They're right outside. I think they're southwest of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're in a really good area. It's I'm pretty sure Tarleton's a research institution. I mean, a lot of it makes sense. A lot of it makes sense. Tarleton's a very interesting reach, and I'm curious why. That's interesting. I'm curious if Texas State, I'm guessing Tarleton has far more ability to financially support a move to FBS.
Yeah.
That's what I would guess.
Yeah.
Because again, it's $5 million to jump up from FCS, the championship series, to the bowl series. I'm pretty certain that Tarleton has a better ability to compete at that level financially, because it's $5 million, a one-time $5 million fee to bump up. Significant infrastructure improvement as far in human cost alone. I've talked about this extensively. The human cost, the academic cost, the scholarship cost. It's a lot of money. It's $50 million ish to bump up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's going to be a big question. Monty, got homework to do. Find out why Tarleton. Get on the phone. I will. Yeah. Trust me. No doubt about that. Christopher Shannon, why not add Texas high schools? That's what these lower Texas universities are. And maybe Brandon Butler's right. Excuse me. You think the Pac-12 take Rice All Sports University? Again, you guys, how are you going to get Rice? You're not getting how are you if you're in the AAC right now, because Rice is a member of the AAC. You've signed a new grant of rights.
Yeah, that ain't happening, bro.
You've signed an agreement. You're not getting out of the AAC, the Mountain West, or the Pac-12. You're not. But Brandon Butler might be right, because they might say yes. That's exactly right. Kirk Mason, it's a big jump. It is. Delaric, Tarleton is 100 miles west of Waco. It's a research ag school.
That could be as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those are, again, see, that's what I mean. There's only Gloria Nevarez and the presidents of those member institutions in the Mountain West know what they are prioritizing, right? I mean, it goes without saying that you have to have money to make the jump. It goes without saying that, you know, Tarleton would obviously prioritize and obviously value being able to make the jump. All that stuff is obvious. But what's not obvious is, how much are you prioritizing being an ag school? How much are you prioritizing education versus, you know, athletics? How much are you prioritizing getting back to 8 full share members versus the composition of your conference? I mean, these are all details and pieces of the conversation that I think that the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are prioritizing in different ways. The Pac-12 clearly is putting a big emphasis on adding nameplates that will give them a bit more credibility, which is why you're getting Gonzaga, in my opinion.
Do you guys understand the impact Gonzaga basketball has on the WCC, the Pac-12, and the Mountain West? This is not a small move.
Yeah.
It's not a small move. And I think it's just the beginning. Like, there's a lot coming. There may be talking to Tarleton because Texas State has an unannounced move to the Pac. Could be.
I mean, that could be too. I mean, see, and that's what I mean. Those are things that we don't know. So, like, again, you know, Gloria Nevarez and company know things that we don't yet know. But I'm just telling you that there's a reason you would look at Tarleton versus Texas State. There is a clear reason they're looking that way.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the news today, and again, Brett McMurphy had it first that UTEP's joining the Mountain West. Pete Thamel had it first that Gonzaga is expected to announce a move to the Pac-12 today. It's a huge day of news.
Dominoes.
It's a huge day of news. T. Lawrence says Tarleton State has a brand new basketball facility, is competing in basketball at a D1 level for the first time.
And that's also,
they have the money.
When you project forward, right, for these conferences, if we set the Super League conversation aside for a sec, basketball and revenue generating through basketball, both through tournament shares and through advertising partnerships, is super important, is crucial for the future of these conferences' survival.
Yeah, and Jim, that's exactly right. You guys reported yesterday the Pac would move in silence.
And here we are.
And here we are. Because they had, I think it had been hurting them. I think the Pac, there needs to be more than Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a great move. There needs to be more here. There needs to be more. All right, final one, then we got to roll. Tarleton is also not hard to get to. It's 1.5 hours to Waco, Fort Worth, Abilene.
Abilene.
And 2 hours to El Paso.
Yeah.
It's a great ad, dude. It is I don't disagree with you, and they have the money. I think they have the money. That's the biggest thing. But again, I believe it was Pete Thamel at ESPN. Thamel. I joke with Thamel. Anyway, I believe it was Pete Thamel who reported that Texas State has a verbal offer from the Mountain West.
Yeah.
And now you get Tarleton. Can you add Tarleton, Texas State, and UTEP? Isn't that redundancy?
Well, it's redundancy, but also it's travel partners too. I think, maybe that's part of the strategy. Hey, how can we cut costs by having 2 members in the state or 3? How does a third help? And
Paco makes a good point. Tarleton gets you closer to better recruiting in DFW.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And if you think about the fight in Dallas Fort Worth right now, I mean, that's TCU country.
Yeah.
Everything is Texas, the University of Texas, but that's TCU country right now. So it is very interesting. All of our breaking news on the Monty Show, presented by Canyons Resort, the official golf club of the Monty Show. 2 weekends left.
Yeah.
2 weekends. We got to make golf plans for this weekend.
Dude, we're
got to make golf plans.
You're telling me.
We'll be at Canyons this weekend. Make sure you come out. Come play golf with us.
Yeah, man. Best time of the year right now.
I got to work on the driver. I got to get the driver back in shape. Canyons Golf. You can find him at Park City Mountain Resort in Canyons Village. Just Google search Canyons Golf Park City. Book your tee times online. Great staff, great amenities, from everything from GPS on the cart, lush fairways and greens, concierge service. They carry your bags for you. They set you up. You have a cooler with ice in it. It's just amazing. And then you're in a world-class resort like Park City Mountain Resort. Canyons Village has great food. Go play 18 holes, have a world-class meal, go to sleep fat and happy. I mean, it's amazing.
Like
it's everything
Gonzaga.
you want. Yeah, like your Gonzaga. It's everything you want. That's why you go play golf at Park City Mountain Resorts. Woo.
Well, that was a show and a half.
How about that?
You're welcome, by the way. 3 hours today, hyenas. You're welcome.
Dan, at some point we'll get something right on this show. You guys don't go 3 hours and you don't have sources. Trust me, bro. UTEP to the Mountain West.
Before anybody else.
The Monty Show, presented by The Advocates at theadvocates.com. Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.